Alright everybody, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be breaking down the Nike Spec ad that I shot with my not so little brother. And if you haven't seen the video yet, the link will be down in the description below so you can check it out. So I'm going to be showing you guys everything, or at least as much as I can in a relatively short period of time, so this video isn't an hour and a half long. But we'll be going over the camera setup, the camera settings, as well as a detailed explanation of all the lighting that was used. So it's going to be pretty in-depth today, so make sure you watch the entire video so you don't miss anything. But if you prefer to skip around and you're looking for something specific, I'll put time codes in the video as well so you can jump around to find whatever is most interesting to you. So first and foremost, let me go over all the gear that was used. For camera, I used my Zcam E2 F6. It's my cinema build, so it has the V-mount battery on the back, the top handle, as well as a 7-inch monitor and a video transmitter. If you want details or more information on that, I can make a separate video because that's a whole thing. So for lenses, I used 3 in total. The wide angle was the Canon FD 35mm f2 SSC, 50mm f1.4 SSC, and finally the FD 85mm f1.2L. So all the glass that I used is vintage glass, and I think it's beautiful. So for lights, I used 4 total. The key lights were an Aputure 300X, as well as an Aputure 300D. The overhead light that I used was an Amaran 100XS, and then the edge light for a couple of the shots was an Amaran T4C. So this was done in a relatively small space. It was all shot in a garage, so I did use a lot of modifiers. So they are as follows: an Aputure Lantern 90 with the skirt. The T4C, I used a grid. I also used a Westcott 4x6 scrim gym set, a Matthews 4x floppy bounce, as well as a floppy neg. There were a couple small things that I used in my impact flag kit that I'll go over. I also used Aputure's small square softboxing grid for the 300X. There was also a few feet of 0.9 ND gels, some Duvetine, landscaper plastic or Visqueen if you want to be fancy, and a whole lot of haze. So my initial thought after I listed all of that stuff down for this video was that's a lot of stuff, but it makes a lot of sense. So don't let the sheer amount of things listed be intimidating, because remember, there were only 4 lights that were used, and there's a lot of modification that goes into that. But yeah, just bear with me. Camera settings, I shot everything in 6K open gate, and I don't remember the resolution of that, so I'll stick it somewhere up here. Everything was shot in 24 frames per second in ProRes 422. I used the Zcam Z-Log profile, as well as 4200 Kelvin for everything. Now this garage we shot in has a lot of natural light. I mean, it is straight up bright in there. So there's 2 windows, as well as the windows that are above the garage doors, and it's a 4-car garage, so you also have light spilling in from the other side. It's a whole thing. So we had to black out all but the back 2 windows that were in the frame. So in order to do that, we took landscaper plastic, or Visqueen if you want to be fancy, as well as a combination of Duvetine for the smaller windows, and we just clamped those, gaff taped them if we had to, and blacked out every single window minus the 2 that were in frame behind the talent. That's when the 0.9 ND gel came into play. So we used a strip about 4x2 or so, and I just gaff taped them onto the windows. And the way that these windows are built, they swing out. I don't know why, but they do. And that way I just stuck that in there, gaff taped it. It looked a little jank, but when you close that front part of the window, you just couldn't see it anymore. So that worked out perfect to knock that light down, because otherwise it was way too bright, even with the shutters closed. So once the space was really dark, I could start shaping the light to get the look that I was going after, which was a really high contrast, moody, if you will, sort of look. So with the opening scene here, first 2 shots, this one here, as well as that one, they were lit pretty much the same. I started with the Amaran T4C, which is a tube light, not a strange tube, and that was directly over top of our talent here. It also had a grid on it, which is, I think it's like 45-degree grid or something. And initially the light was still a little too harsh for my liking, especially right where it was hitting on his shoulders up here. So what I did was I took a flag from my impact kit, my impact flag kit, and I put that directly underneath it. And if I'm not mistaken, it was a full piece of diffusion, and that got that softer light that I was looking for, especially down here on the forearms and even all the way down here on his leg. After that was set up, I took a 4x floppy and I flopped it open, had it over here, camera left, and that way it was sucking up all the light that was over here. And then lastly, this setup, or this next light that I set up, was more or less just to speed up the process for the following shot. I did turn it on, but just know it was super subtle and it didn't really make a huge difference, but it was there. So it was a book light. So it was the 4x floppy. I had the 100XS, Amaran 100XS, and it was on the ground shooting into this book light on the bottom part. It was then bouncing off the top, coming toward our talent. And then before it got to talent, I double diffused it. So we had the scrim gem kit here with a full diffusion on it coming over on camera right. So just a really subtle, soft light. Again, it was more or less to set up the next shot to make it a little quicker, but just know it was there too. And then obviously we had a bunch of haze. Haze was the theme for all these shots. So just know if I forget to mention the haze, it was in every single shot. So yeah, haze everything. For our second shot here, the close-up of the hands, the lighting setup stayed the same. The only adjustment that I did was I took that T4C, the Amaran, the tube light that was over top, and pulled it forward a little more to get some more light on his knuckles, because it was completely, his head was completely blocking it. So that does it for the opening shots. Let's move on to the Bosu ball shots, which is what I set up that book light for. The Bosu ball shots happened really quickly. I wanted boxing obviously to be the primary exercise that was being done here. So when we watch this, we have the wide shot, the close-up, we have one Bosu ball shot there. So it's very, very fast. And then we have another one that is here. So it only happens twice in this whole film, or this whole spec ad. And it's maybe like a total of 2 seconds. But they do look good, so let's break them down. So that's where that book light came into play, where we had our Amaran there, bouncing here, bouncing there, coming back out with our scrim gem. That was full diffusion. Oops, full diffusion here. So double bounce into that, and then I still had the tube light that was up here. It just honestly wasn't doing too much. You can still see it a little bit, like on his hair. There's a little bit of an edge light here. But the primary light, the key obviously would be this double diffuse bounce light that's right there. And looking at this shot really reinforces why I love large, soft, diffused light. And it's because of this catch light that we have in both of his eyes. And the reason I love a catch light, a really soft catch light, is because it brings your eye toward the talent. It really draws your attention in. And I just think it's beautiful. So yeah, big soft light, always my favorite. So now let's move on to the medium close-ups, which is more of the meat and potatoes of this shoot. So over here on camera left, we have that floppy neg right there, just on a C-stand, and that's sucking up all the light that is on this side. The other thing that helped with sucking up the light is the black tarp that we used in the duvetine and just generally darkening the entire space. But this is doing a whole lot right here. So the key light that we have, the light that's coming over here and hitting his face. So the key light there is an Aputure 300X, and this guy had a grid on it. So let's see, here we go. Look at that. Look how lovely. So that grid is helping prevent the light from spilling in the background here, even a little bit over here as well. So it just gives the light a little more control. And behind this, I actually put 2 layers of muslin, just single layers of muslin, as well as the one-stop diffusion that comes with it. So softening the light as much as possible. Reason being, this little square softbox is just a little too sourcey for me, even with the full piece of diffusion. So adding 2 layers of muslin really, really helps soften the light. And in addition to that, I had that 4x6 scrim gem with the single diffusion as well. So more double diffused light, getting it as soft as possible. And that's the reason the highlights here and here are so soft. It's because it's extremely diffused. So the last light that we used was our top light. With this light, I wanted it to serve 2 purposes. So I wanted it to be just like an edge / overhead top light, as well as like a little bit of a fill on some of the talent. So for this, I used a 100, the Amaran 100XS, and on that, the modifier was, look at that, the lantern. One of my favorite modifiers. So it's directly above our talent, and then it's just boomed over with a junior boom. Now, to be completely honest, a menace arm would have been way safer than the way that we had this set up. The C-stand that I have, they claim to be 100% steel, but even then it was bending way too much for my liking. Even the boom arm was bending too much. So menace arm would be a lot safer. If you're gonna do this on set with clients, keep that in mind. Another thing about this lantern, I did have the skirt on it, and I didn't have it rolled up at all. So it was completely straight down, just to kind of give you like a tube of light, a big wide tube of light coming straight down. And it also prevented too much light from spilling over here in our background. And I wanted to keep this really dark as well. So yeah, just prevented all that light from spilling, really controlling every single aspect of light that we have in this scene, which is super nice. Now the other shots that had this setup, let me kind of scroll through really fast. That one was different. That one was different. So like the really tight shots that you see in the spec ad of the close tight boxing, this one as well, those were all the same exact setup, just different lenses. So for these I use the 50mm as well as the 85. Most of the close-ups are actually the 85 just because I love the compression and that focal length. There's a couple of the 50, but primarily the 85. Now for the wider / medium wide shots, I had to change up the setup again, especially for the jump rope stuff. So let's go to the widest jump rope shot that we had for this, which is right there. Now this setup is a combination more or less of the previous setup, the close-up medium stuff, as well as the Bosu ball. So it was just a matter of taking all the gear and just shifting it to where it needed to be. So setup was relatively quick on this one. Our overhead light stayed the same. So still the Amaran 100 XS, and it did have the skirt. Now the skirt was a little different on this one. I kept the back part down, but I did leave the part that was closest to camera up. So I wanted to prevent too much light from spilling in the background here, and even honestly, this is a little too much for me, but it's the best I could do with the resources I had. So this was preventing way too much light from spilling in the background. Without the skirt down on that side, it was just completely washing it out, and it was like they were in a different room entirely. It was also boomed over in the sketchiest of manners, so please use a menace arm if you do this. And then the key light that you see right here, I wanted a split lighting for all this stuff, at least the jump rope stuff on this one. So no light on camera left, all the light on camera right. There we go. And this was when I doubled up the 300 and the 300X and 300D. So both those lights were over here, just side by side. And they both had the reflectors on them, and they were bouncing into that floppy bounce. So we had a book light again. So again, the light is bouncing off this bottom part. It is bouncing up to the top part and then coming back out. Just like before, we have the 4x6 full diffusion for our double diffused look. And then once I had that set up, I was running into an issue with light spill. Obviously, I didn't have any grids or anything like that, even though I would have loved a grid. So what I did was I took the 4x floppy, as well as some black poster board that I have that I use as negative fill as well. And I put them on either side of the book light to kind of contain it just a little bit. Now I did do a shot prior to putting up those flags, and I really wish I would have gone back and reshot it because it looks completely different than all the other shots. And I can actually show you which one that is. It's toward the end here, which is this one here. So you can see just how much more light there is on this background. And that's the one thing that I was trying to prevent the entire time. So if I would have just gone back and reshot this one, and I think there's a wide shot as well. Yeah, that one right there. So you can see just how much that 4x floppy was doing on this guy here, on this on that back wall, because that is the same setup as this here. So it's doing a lot. If you don't have a grid, like a giant 4x grid or a 6x grid to control your light coming into your talent, this is always a good option. Taking 2 flags on either side, big ones if you have them, and just kind of creating your own softbox, if you will. So for lensing, it was the same as the opening shot, so the 35 and the 50. This particular shot, this wide one here, was the 35, and the other jump rope shots, so this one and the feet, those are both the 50. The 35, the only one I used was that shot that we just broke down. So yeah, 50mm came in clutch with this one. I hope this was helpful. If you guys enjoy breakdown videos, check out another one that I did from a scene from a short film that I shot, or you can check out another one of my videos. If you haven't already, consider subscribing so you don't miss another video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.